What is poker? Texas Hold'em poker is a card game played between 2 to 8 players, and each player is dealt 2 cards face down. Then 2 designated players place a starting bet in the middle of the table. These 2 players are referred to as the small and big blinds. Each player will have a turn as the small and big blinds during the game. Generally, the big blind bet is 2 to 3 times what the small blind bet is. For example, if the small blind puts $1 in the middle, the big blind will place $2 to $3 in the middle. If a player folds pre-flop, it typically means they had a bad starting hand and do not want to put any money in the middle. When the player calls pre-flop, it usually means they have a mediocre hand, not a hand they would want to raise with. Calling requires the player to match the previous bet. When a player raises, it usually means they have a premium starting hand, but they could also be bluffing. A premium hand consists of some combination of an ace, king, queen, jack, and or a pocket pair. If a player chooses to raise pre-flop, their bet must be at least 2 times the big blind's bet. If another player chooses to raise the previous raiser, it also must be at least 2 times the previous bet, and so on. After the pre-flop bets have been made, there are 5 community cards that come out in 3 different streaks. The first one is called the flop, which is when 3 of the 5 communal cards come out, and then another round of betting takes place, starting with the small blind and then moving in a clockwise rotation around the table. Players can choose once again to either raise, call, or fold. After that first round of betting has been made, the 4th community card comes out. This is called the turn. One more round of betting then takes place. Once that round of betting has been concluded, the final community card is dealt, and it is called the river. Once the river card comes out, the last round of betting takes place once again, starting with the small blind, and then moving around the table in a clockwise rotation. After all the bets have been made, the players who are still holding cards will flip them over. The player who made the best 5-card combination between the 5 communal cards and their 2 holding cards will win the pot. This stage is called showdown. A player can make a 5-card combination in 10 different ways. The first is by having no connection with the board and simply having a higher card than their opponents. The next strongest hand is a pair. For example, if a player has a pair of 8s and their opponent has ace high, the player with the pair would win. 2 pairs then beat a single pair, and 3 of a kind beat 2 pair. The next strongest hand is called a straight. This is when a player has 5 connecting cards in a row of any suit. An example of a straight would be when a player had jack 9 and 3 of the community cards consisted of a 7, 8, and a 10. This would be a jack high straight. A hand that can beat a straight is a flush, and that is when you have 5 total cards all in the same suit. For example, if the player had 6, 7 of hearts, and the 3 communal cards were 3, 10, and queen of all hearts, that would make a flush. Although you can still lose while having a flush to an even higher flush. Let's suppose your opponent had ace 9 of hearts, and you had that 6, 7 of hearts. They would win because their 5-card combination of hearts was higher than your 5-card combination. A hand that would beat any flush would be a full house. This is when you have 3 of a kind and a pair. A full house can only happen when the 5 community cards have a repeated card like 2 9s. A hand that could beat a full house is 4 of a kind. This can also only happen when the board is paired. This is when you have the same card in all 4 suits between your cards and the communal cards. Then there's a straight flush and the royal flush. These 2 hands are very rare and quite similar. A straight flush sounds like what it is, a combination of a straight and a flush. An example of a straight flush would be if you had the 8 and the 9 of spades, and the board had the 5, 6, and 7 all of spades. The only difference between a royal flush and a straight flush is how high it is. A royal flush is when you have a straight flush, but with the 10, queen, jack, king, and ace all in the same suit. A royal flush is an extremely rare hand, and it is the best hand in all of Texas Hold'em poker.